Hello YouTubers. It's about that time. I've got to change my oil. My little 82 Datsun 720. It's got 280,000 miles. Actually 280,025 miles. I believe I've got over 5,000 miles on this oil here. It's just I haven't had the time to do it. I usually change it right around 3,000 miles, which is what it's called for usually. Back in the day, engine tolerances weren't as good. Fuel, wasn't as good, and neither was the oil. Nowadays, you've got synthetic oils, tighter tolerances, and better filters. And believe it or not, there's some cars that can go 100,000 miles before the first oil change. I've been doing mine roughly around 5,000 miles, and a lot of it is because of that. The better quality in oil. Plus, I do a lot of highway driving. But mixed with city driving, that's when you really got to worry about your oil. And a lot of times I can tell when this truck needs oil change. I feel like it loses a little bit of power. I don't know if it's just me, but when I do that oil change, I don't know if it's like the aura or whatever. It feels like when you first wash a vehicle or whatever, it feels like it runs better, sounds better, gets better gas mileage all of a sudden. But I do believe an oil change will affect power, gas mileage, just like having low air pressure in your tires. It all works together. And with the fuel prices going back up a little bit, you definitely want to keep it running right, and have your engine tuned up and everything. But right now, like I said, I'm gonna do a simple oil change. Some of you probably done a million oil changes, but some that haven't. I want to just go back to basics, and this is for the younger folks, and it's important to know, and nobody's taught somebody about the basics. So I'm going to go back to basics right now. Now here's some things I'm going to recommend you have in order to start or do an oil change. I like to use a set of ramps. This vehicle is low. I like to drive up these ramps here. It gives me a little bit of clearance. Some more tools I suggest: the oil pan bolt, maybe a set of adjustables. They sell these fancy things here. It's got more of the common sizes, but I believe this Datsun here is bigger than this here, so I usually use an adjustable wrench, oil filter, pliers. Of course, you're going to need an oil filter. I use Motorcraft, but PH8A also. There's different. Check your manual for recommended oil filter. Of course, oil. My vehicle's overhead cam engine usually calls for 520, or depending on the temperature, but I use 530, sometimes 40, maybe even 50 weight, depending on the temperature. Of course, a funnel. I like to use brake clean to clean up after my mess. It is a messy job if you're not careful. Hand towels to clean them up if you're not around water. If you do, good hand cleaner, and or some soap or lava soap. Of course, some paper towels, and that's that. All right, I'm fixing to drive up these ramps, and it can be kind of scary if you haven't done it before. Have I ever driven off them? I might have. I don't remember. If I did, it was probably early on. Starting her up. We're ready to pull her up the ramps. You can have your emergency brake engaged a little bit too, just to give it enough drag. Just what I was afraid of. One of the ramps slipped. Let's try this again. Be right back. Okay, go to. Let's try it. Nope, it's not doing it, man. Oh, darn it. Number 3, or as the Germans do it, number 3. Third time. Next time I put a carpet under the one that's slipping. I think the rubber foot fell off of it, so. Oh, I got the one side up, the other one slipped. Must be the surface. It's definitely the surface. Yeah, I'm already tired, man. Fourth try. My fingers don't work so great. Uh, there she goes. There you go. Finally got it. Definitely set your emergency brake. Keep it in gear for God standard. And that's it. Yeah, I'm going to recommend you let the engine cool off, but I have to do a hot lap here because I'm a busy person. I like to take the cap off. This helps oil drain better, I believe. Doesn't cause, just kind of like poking a hole in something and carburetor basically. Don't forget your oil drain pan. That's the last thing I forgot. Also, don't forget to take the plug out. Make sure this is tight. Up here, you have another carburetor. Allow it to let oil go in without, causing it to gurgle or whatever, air bubbles. You're gonna want to position the pan and anticipate the oil gonna shoot all out all over the place. So, want to position the pan to where you think the oil is gonna land, and also once it is almost drained, you don't want it too far over that it just starts dripping all over the floor or concrete, wherever you're at. That's the oil pan bolt. I only have one, but some have more. Like say a Fox Body Mustang, it's got a double hump cross pan, oil pan, because of the cross member right in the middle of it. I recommend having all the things you need right next to you, so you won't be getting up and down, especially if you're by yourself. And as you get older, it's a little harder to get up and down. Breaking the bolt loose. Okay. Just remember, it's going to be a little hot. I set my engine. I just finished parking it. So I don't recommend doing what I'm doing unless you really have to. There's a plug. Already loosened it somewhat. Yes, sir. Sure did. Oh, no. Said we gotta anticipate and see where that oil is gonna be landing. Roughly, I'm gonna think about right here. It'll be fine. I put pressure on the bolt. Keep it from making too much of a mess. So we just guessed it. Land right in there. We want to scoot it in a little closer. Oops, drop the phone. Hear that gurgling noise? Move that pan over. So I like to pull that plug. There we go. Any mess I may have my brake cleaner with me to spray off any mess. Of course, you let it drain fully. I'm going to go to the filter now. Yeah, I did manage just to make a little mess, not a whole lot of mess. Okay, I did make a little bit of mess. Okay, not too bad, but I had my paper towel ready, had my brake cleaner ready. I reinstalled the oil pan bolt. Make sure you put it back on. Make sure you tighten it up. Make sure that there's a little gasket in between. It's usually copper between the oil pan and the bolt. Make sure that's on there. Now, and unfortunately for me, the oil filter's in an odd spot on these things here, and it's gonna make a mess. So I probably won't be recording all that. Yeah, I'm gonna of course have my pan positioned under it, but it's gonna get on the motor mount, on the frame a little bit, and but that's how. Make sure after you've done, drain all the oil, put the plug back on, torque it down, that you go to an oil filter and take care of that. Sometimes you have to get them from the top, or they're all at the bottom, like in this case. It all depends on your vehicle. But while I'm here and I'm on the ground, I'm going to do this. And I'm also going to add some fresh oil, and I'm going to make sure that that oil seal comes off of the old one and put the new one on. But I'm going to put fresh oil on the oil seal. And like I said, I'm going to look at that surface up there where that oil filter goes on and make sure that the gasket's not stuck to it, because you can do that really easy. Sometimes I've done it once before, and had a 66 Ford pickup with a 390, and I actually kind of blew it up pretty much. It was already on its last leg, but when it did that, I double gasket it, and there was oil seeping out, or actually spraying out between the old gasket and the new gasket. And I remember running it really hard that night, man, and when I stopped and tried to take off again, it just was not going very well. It was just barely made it up hills and everything. So it was on its last legs for sure. Finally killed it. Here, as you can see, I'm draining the oil filter right now. It's kind of a slow trickle, but once it stops, I'm going to finish pulling it off. I ended up using my oil filter wrench to break it loose. Guys and people, just remember that you don't have to tighten that oil filter on like it's gonna fall off or something. You gotta tighten it until it mates to the block. The rubber gasket mates to the block. Once it touches the surface, you do 3/4 of a turn after that by hand. No wrenches, no pliers, no oil filter wrench, nothing like that. Once it touches that surface, that rubber gasket touches that surface, 3/4 of a turn more. Hand tight, that's it. Like I said, you don't want a double gasket. You don't want to over tighten it either, because what happens after a while, once it gets hot, it's going to expand, and you're not going to get that oil filter off. You're going to break it or cut into it before you get it off. So just remember, just hand tighten 3/4 of a turn after it touches the surface. Okay, I'm done bottom side. I'm at the top now. Got the oil plug or cap taken off. Oil filter is on. 3/4 of a turn tightened. Rubber gasket lubed with fresh oil. So that's that. I tightened up the oil pan bolt, torqued it. Now I'm going to use my funnel. My huge funnel. Actually, I need to clean it off first. It's a little dusty. Yep. Clean it off. Big funnel. Dust it off. I'll start off putting about 4 quarts in. Then I'm going to crank the vehicle over. It's probably going to shut it off really quick. And what that does, the oil filter takes about 1 quart. I'm going to stop about 1 quart under, so about 4 quarts. And I'm going to go ahead and crank it over, check the oil, and then add 1 more quart. And I believe this holds 5 quarts, but check your manual to see what the recommended oil capacity is for your vehicle. That way you can fill it up to it. Okay, so I've topped it off. Looked under the vehicle for any leaks. No leaks. Oil is really hard to see because it's so clear. I mean, synthetic oil, but it's at that mark. So far, so good, man. Like I said, this is something very simple to some. Uh, I recommend you do it at least once if you're just learning. It's good to know your car. It's good to know how to maintain it. You can always pay somebody to do it. But I recommend at least knowing your vehicle and how much oil it takes, how much oil costs, even, the price. That way you can compare whether you have it done or you do it yourself. Also, it helps you just collect a little bit of tools that you need to get stuff done. I always recommend you try to do it yourself first. And if you can't do it, just pay. So I know what type of oil filter I need, what type of oil I need, just even the basics on how to do an oil change. It's very important. Like I said, thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing. I've got quite a bit of new subscribers. I don't know where I'm going with this, but I'm very happy that you guys are at least watching and just learning something possibly, or just enjoying what I have. And I know I jump around a lot, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start another channel, and the other channel is just gonna be everything else, because I'm into everything. So I want this first channel here to be on trucks and things like that, and the second channel will be maybe possibly jewelry making, how-tos, flying drones, and all these other things. So keep an eye out for my second channel. I think I'm going to name it Benny's Projects 2, as in TOO. So keep an eye. Thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing. Like if you choose. Dislike, it's all good. Thank you. Bye-bye.